Testing sound. That appears to work. Testing sound on Twitch. That also appears to work. Lee. All right. All right. So I have been working on a completely different issue, which involves C++ modules. And part of the reason for this is because part of this is because not see here. I was disappointed at the amount of time it took to compile anything that used lib format. And so I wanted to do something about that. And the something to do about that would be to try using C++ modules to make it better. And that led down the rabbit hole of where is module support these days. So yeah. All right. So we are going to try and link to the place in the tree that has the library that we care about here. So here. And we are going to say not just, oh, this is pretty awful here. Don't actually care about hash. What I care about here is not that. What I care about here there, that's what I care about. Um, and let's see here. All right. So we're looking at the description of the protocol on this page here in libcody directory. Kodi being like a clever backronym for something. Whoa, what is it? A clever back compiler dynamism. Such scintillating and clever naming. And it was first described here, but this document has been far out of date, and so this is probably the best ways to find it. Sadly, GCC is not mirrored anywhere that has a nicer interface to get than this. But that's where it is. There is also a version, an out of tree version of libcody sitting on GitHub in here. This is basically the version of the library as it existed before it was folded into GCC. And it hasn't actually seen that much in the way of updates since then. Some, but not a lot. Actually, it'd be kind of interesting to do a diff on the README between this and that. But that's neither here nor there. The whole idea of this Python program that I wrote is that it implements this protocol. And as part of implementing this protocol, it uses the async library, async.io, and it basically spawns a new async coroutine, to deal with each compiler invocation. Yeah. I'm trying to figure out what to do next here because I want this to basically wrap compiler invocations and copy the flags from the compiler. And I want it to include the flags because this actually kind of works right now. So here's what the protocol looks like when you're actually doing the communication. This is messages from GCC. This is messages you're sending to GCC. And this is for compiling an ordinary source file that in fact is not a module. And it starts out with this, and here, up here, it starts out with, oh, come on. There we go. It starts out with this, like, hey, I'm GCC. I'm using version 1 of the protocol. Please tell me where the module repo is, which I'm not quite sure why that's relevant, but it asks. And so I say, oh, the module repo is in gcm.cache. And I cheekily call myself me typing, because that is exactly what's going on here. Semicolon is like a continuation character saying that this is basically a bundle of commands that should be treated together as being one command. And then it tells you that's what it did up here, right? So I have a bundle of responses. And so my bundle of responses is, hello, it's just me typing. I'm not expected to provide an ID like this thing does. And then module repo GCM cache. So that's the expected response. I don't know what it does with this response. It appears to completely ignore the module repo after that. Then it gives you, every time it encounters an include file, it goes, should I be including a module for this thing? And my answer is no. And the way you say you should do a textual inclusion of this file is just to respond with bool true. And so then it does the normal textual inclusion of this, the include file that it encounters. This enables you to sort of, I haven't sat down and understood exactly how the protocol works, but it does enable you to do something like say, oh, actually, you should be importing a module for this header file. And then it will do that. But that's not what I'm doing right now. Right now, what I'm doing is I'm saying, just saying, yep, include it. And I think I'm not going to change that behavior. It's a kind of a hard-coded behavior, and that's kind of what I want to do. And then it says, I want to import the module top. And then you have to respond, well, you can find the module top at this place right here. Which, okay, that's nice. Now, there are a bunch of interesting issues here. So, and when I did that, it compiled just fine. It was this compile command right here. Oh, no, it was not. Sorry. Or was it? Yeah, it was this one right here. Oh, or no, it wasn't. What was it? Was it this one? Yes, it was over here in this one. I have too many tabs and too many windows that I've done too many things in. Okay, let's go up here. It was this compile command right here. That's what produced all of this. These are named pipe files, FIFOs. Told it module mapper, and then this syntax says, there's not so much a module mapper program as a couple of pipes that you should be talking to. And, you should be sending to this pipe and reading from this pipe. So that's what I did. And then I hand typed everything and, it popped out on the screen. This was cat from GCC1. So cat from where it's writing to. And then this one is cat into. The command is way up here, but it's cat into that, right? So, yeah. And this is not, this is a module file, sort of, but this is a module implementation file. And so I'll show you what that looks like. Source. Oh, this is a build directory. Yes. So that's the implementation file. And one of the reasons why I wanted to do that is because when I included IOStream in the module file, I got all kinds of garbage in the module output, the module interface file, because IOStream wasn't exported in the interface at all, but it was kind of in some ways sort of part of the interface because I was including it in the interface. And so I didn't want to. Now, one interesting thing is I could just import STD, and then I'd be getting a request for module STD, and then there's a canonical way of compiling in GCC. There's a way you can tell GCC, I want to compile the standard module, and then there's a way you can invoke GCC to get it to compile the standard module for you. And that would have been a way to do it. And that would have saved a whole lot when I did this when I could have done import STD here instead of include IOStream. And I also wouldn't have had this global module fragment section, right? So I could have just done module top and then import STD. And in fact, in that particular case, what I might have done instead is I might have done in this is the actual module interface file. I might have in this said export module top. And then before I moved this part here from here to there, I also moved this part from here to it used to be in here. I used to not have an implementation file. But once I moved this, I didn't need to include IOStream in here. So, but if I wanted to do it with STD instead, I could just do export module top and then import STD. And it wouldn't be import export or export import. I think it's export import because I don't, in fact, want to expose STD here. I just want to export the top module from here. And so I would have done import module import STD, and then I would have gotten access to all the IOStream stuff in here. You might want to do that if you want to use some of the IOStreams type in the interface. So yeah, I could have done that. But then I would have done import STD, and the module mapper would have had to have realized, oh, STD is a special module, and I need to do something weird to compile it. And yeah. Anyway, my module mapper, as it sits, is really stupid. Has basically rote responses to all the messages. It only does a little bit of parameterization and keeping track of state. Like one piece of state maybe it should be keeping track of is what module it just compiled. Although it doesn't know until the end of the module, until it gets to module export. Then it knows what module it's supposed to be compiling. And also, too, it doesn't implement the quoting rules properly, all kinds of things here. So anyway, these are the encoding rules for libcoding as it currently sits. What I'm tempted to do is give the AI and we're going to start new task. I'm Here, I'm going to go here. No, no, no. And then do I have, there's E. Oh, stupid thing and its inability to handle focus follows mouse. Hey. Particular command is part of. Oh, I'm sorry you can't see. I'm not sure what to do about the fact that you can't see because, yeah, this is Twitch. I need to compile my own version of OBS, uh, and I need to then compile my own version of a plugin that allows me to multi-stream using OBS. And I believe if I do that, that the plugin I have in mind does a good job of dealing with the way Twitch wants to handle 4K streams. Um, anyway, I'm right now getting an AI to write some code for me. So, uh, yes. Actually, you know what I should do here? Uh, Well, it did something that I didn't want it to do. No, no, no. The AI is trying to do way more than I asked it to do. So now it says it's integrated them, but it hasn't. Anyway, let's look at the file that it created because it created a new file. It did not, to my knowledge, add it to the oh my. Yeah, I wouldn't have done this way. I would have done this in a different way, but it works. So it went in and added them here. All right. So it has a set of safe characters, and it has basically it's doing its own kind of state machine here, where it's going through and uh, fiddling with things. Um, Now, okay, this is acceptable. This will be slow, but it doesn't matter that much. There is another aspect where it did not do quite what I expected it to do. Um, It punts. That's interesting. It punts if it encounters the escape character and then some other character that's not a valid escape sequence. It just decides, okay, we'll just append that character and go on, which is fine. That's a way to do it. It would technically be a parser error, but I'm willing to let that slide. Current word that append line yes, that's right. Uh, so this looks correct as well. Um, the safe characters shouldn't be in here. The safe characters, uh, Okay, that's what I thought. This is strictly a better way of doing it and should probably drop safe chars. Huh. It doesn't provide good documentation as to what full match actually means, which is kind of disappointing. But I'm pretty sure it means what I think it means. So we will work with it. And I'm curious. Yep, it's a single quote. For clarity's sake, we're going to do this. Uh, yep. I want to be more explicit. About what's going on here. Yes, indeed. All right. This should work just fine. I like how they use ORD here. I'm not going to fix this, but this is what I'm happy with right now. Okay. Also, this docstring needs to move up here. All right. Now, no. All right. And here, no repetition of split. Now compile module. should work. Hello there. Physical version control project. What do you mean? I don't remember that. Physical version control project. Nope, I don't remember what that means. What do you mean by physical version control project? Um, what I'm doing here is uh, implementing a protocol that's used by GCC to communicate with things that provide GCC with the path names to modules that are being imported by C++ programs. Yes, that's among the things it does. It's a little more sophisticated than that. The other thing it should do is if GCC is trying to import a module that is out of date and hasn't been compiled, it should in fact spawn a compile process to compile it. So yes, that is what I'm working on now. And each of the GCCs and stuff that handles communicating with them is its own coroutine, which yeah, that's a thing. Oh, that. No, that was an idea, and I had a friend in mind for who to do that with. But that friend kind of rejected the idea in a way that I found actually extremely rude. Um, and yes, because they didn't just say, I don't have time for that, or I would like to help, but I don't have time or anything. They implied I was up to something nefarious by making the request at all, which was that's just rude. Um, and it was annoying. Also, I used AI to write a bunch of this just to see. Um, and so this is also my communications with the AI, which I was having difficulty writing herd over, getting it to do only what I wanted it to do. I wanted to do a lot more than what I wanted it to do. Um, and that was kind of annoying. But I think that this is a clear upgrade. So we're going to try running this again. There. Yep, this is what I wanted it to do right here. Oh, it didn't like this at all. What did it not like? Wow. There is only one solution to this problem, which is we are going to have a command log. Focus follows mouse. Okay. Oh. It did something wrong here. What have you been up to? Uh, do you find what I'm working on right now to be at all interesting? I, there is a possibility that the last line won't have a trailing new line. Um, there we go. That's more like it. Hmm. That was actually part of that whole thing would have been facilitated by this BTRFS snapback program that I was writing. You might have showed up last time. Um, Oh, that's pretty nifty. I don't know. Those sound like pretty hireable skills to me in a certain sense. Like if I were an interviewer and I heard that you'd done this, I'd want to look at the code and I'd ask you stuff about the code to make sure that it really was your code. And I'd be impressed because you did the research and took the time to figure out how to write all that yourself. And maybe it's in JavaScript. I might want you to have a broader base of languages that you'd worked with. But other than that, I would find it impressive that you were able to take all those ideas and translate them into working code. So yes, uh, it's going. Things are going pretty well. Uh, I made a major change to the CPP server thing to actually parse the protocol more correctly instead of the special case version of the protocol. Um, and so that's a good thing. Um, yeah. Oh, I just realized something. I just realized something. Um, I'm not doing something quite right here. Yes, I am not doing something quite right. So, uh do you ever call join command? If I don't, I need to, and I need to change something about, yep, I do not. Okay. So, we're going to have to change how this works. And no, that does not belong there. This belongs there. The thing about your anti-malware is kind of amusing. One, you should stop using Windows. That's just my opinion. But um, the other thing is that's just insane because actually having JavaScript programs running around on your computer that you're executing directly with like a JavaScript interpreter is no more safe than having a C compiler and stuff. And your anti-malware is kind of broken and brain dead. Um, so here's what's going on. When I run GCC, um, I can run GCC in this peculiar way. I can run it like this, right? Now, I don't know that Windows has this, but Unix has this thing called a named pipe. And so this is tells it, okay, J++, I want you to compile this thing. And as you're compiling this thing, when it requests a C++ module, which is a new C++ feature modules. It was actually added way back in C++ 20, but compilers have been really slow to implement it well because it's actually a feature that changes the way the build process works. And so it requires a lot of support from surrounding tooling as well as support from the compiler. It is a big, hairy mess. So G++ has this idea of a module mapper as part of the way that modules are supported in G++. And this is not really a module mapper program. This is just telling G++, hey, send these module mapper commands to this named pipe. And here is an example of what it's sending. It's sending all of this stuff. And then expect responses on this named pipe here. Oh, actually, that's right. It would have worked that way. Anyway, ignore this freestanding no standard lib stuff. That's not relevant here. But all the rest of it is relevant. And so when I run this compilation command, it sends this stuff to this named pipe, and then it expects responses that look like this on the expects responses that look like this on its incoming named pipe. And you can see that this is the command cat greater than 2 GCC underscore 1, right? So that's basically me being able to type directly into the named pipe and have it go to GCC. That is why I cheekily called, because one of the parameters here for hello is description of who are you? And I just said, it's me typing. And so then like it sends the module repo command, right? And what it expects is it expects where the module repo is. I don't know what it does with this information right now, but that's what it expects. And so then I tell it, it's here. And then it sends all these things about, hey, it tried to get this include file. What should I do? And my response is, oh, you should do a textual substitution like you're supposed to normally do for an include. Just do the normal thing. That's what this bool true is all about. And it does this for every single header file it encounters in its whole chain, because headers include headers, right? And then, so I just tell it, all those header files, just textually substitute them. And then it will, so then it tells me, I want to import the module top. Where is it? And I go, path name. There's where you find the module top, the file for the module top. And then GCC goes, oh, okay. And, it works, right? And so that is how GCC has another way of specifying a module mapper. And so if you look inside this code here, I actually add an argument to GCC, -f module mapper equals, and then I creating, don't worry about exactly what I'm doing here. Exactly. It's really complicated to explain because I have to tell you what a socket pair is and how socket pairs work under Unix and what they mean. They're basically kind of a way of doing what this named pipe thing was doing, kind of, sort of, but not exactly. Don't worry about it. But what I do end up with is this causes GCC, when I spawn GCC with this async, this create subprocess thing, it then spawns GCC in a way that sets it up so that it's communicating over this socket that I just created with this program. And so now it's this program that's getting all of these things. And it has to keep track of a separate protocol state for each GCC that it spawns, because it might get a module import for a module that it can't tell GCC, well, the module's right here, right? The module file might be out of date. The module file might not exist yet, any number of things. It might not even be able to supply it, in which case I should be replying with an error. And so then I might have to spawn another GCC to compile that module. And so this thing might actually have several GCCs it's communicating with at any given point in time. Each GCC is going to have its own conversation that it's having. And so I have to keep track of this protocol state which is one of the reasons why I have the protocol engine being in here. I have to keep track of this protocol state on a per spawn GCC basis. And part of what happens as part of this protocol is spawning other GCCs that also communicate with this program to compile modules that are imported by other modules. So that's what I'm doing here. That's what this protocol is all about. It's a protocol in which it's communicating with GCC. And the reason why I'm having to write my own is because this is kind of a brand new thing that GCC does nowadays. Oh, I have somebody on YouTube who's also talking to me, and he asked me, how's it going so far? And yes. It is kind of like a dependency solver, except, yeah, it is kind of like a dependency solver. Um, yes, I mean, I could have a module mapper that went out onto the internet and automatically downloaded something or some ridiculous thing like that. No. Um, all this is going to do is compile code that is findable within the current source hierarchy. It's not going to do what Maven does and download all kinds of garbage from all over the place. I hate tools that do that, actually. They encourage really terrible programming practices. Maven, once I realized how Maven worked, absolutely horrified me to my core. Like, it is one of the worst pieces of of lazy, like, it encourages some of the most lazy behavior I have ever seen a build tool encourage. Oh, you don't have to fix any of your dependencies. You don't have to try to match versions at all. I'll just get separate versions of the dependencies for everything that has a dependency on something. Oh, you're depending upon Mail 1.0 and you're depending on Mail 2.0. We'll just include both versions of Mail in your result. Like, what are you doing? That is so broken. People should have to update their code so that everything works with one version of a dependency. That's how it should work. And maybe there are reasons why you can't do that, but that should require significant effort by the people who are writing the software. Maven didn't require any effort. It just did it. And it's just wrong. It's not only it's wrong for a number of reasons. It's wrong because it multiplies the security surface area, right? You have all these different different versions of the module that you're depending upon. Now, a bug in any one of the versions of the module of the thing that you're depending on, it might cause any number of problems to happen. You have to know about a security issue than any of those versions. And maybe that security issue isn't relevant to how you're using that particular version of it because certain code uses certain versions in certain ways. And maybe the code that uses the version that has the vulnerability doesn't use that version in a way that triggers the vulnerability. It just makes everything just ridiculously complicated. And so it looks easy and then makes you do horrible things. And so I dislike Maven intensely. And I'm become very suspicious of things like Go and Rust, the way Cargo and Go will just grab versions of things. And also Node. I don't like how they do that. In my opinion, you should have to be very explicit about when you try to depend on some other version, on a version of something. You should have to be like, lock it into your code. I want version blah of blah. Python, at least in its setup.py files and its other kinds of the TOML files that have replaced them nowadays, at least has you saying, I need to depend on this other Python package in this version range. And you don't get to say, I get to depend on one of many Python packages if the version solver overall can't come up with a version of the package that solves all of the dependencies, all the ways that package is dependent upon. The version solver fails and goes, because it basically decides you can't have multiple versions of the package in there. That's a sort of an okay way to do it. But still, being able to specify like ranges of versions and stuff like that. In C++ nowadays, there's Conan. I haven't experimented a lot with Conan to know exactly how well it handles external dependency pinning. But the other thing you do is Git or Mercurial submodules. And Git or Mercurial submodules, it's very much like this is the exact hash of the source that I'm depending upon. And if I want to change that hash, I have to explicitly update my subrepo. And then that gets up, that's a version change in my own software, is that I changed which version of something I depended upon. It makes it so that you're less prone to just randomly depending upon things. It also means that you're much more careful about exactly which versions of what you depend on. You know what's in your software when it gets built. And so it's a pain and it's annoying and kludgy, but at least it forces you to be very explicit and limited about exactly what you depend on. So that is what I like about the way C++ currently handles things. And so this dependency solver is going to be only about trying to make sure that whatever is in your own source tree that needs to be compiled is compiled. It's not going to try and compile things that are outside your source tree. Now, there is a couple of questions, like the dependency solver probably should handle submodules that are like you've compiled them already. You did a make in them, and all of their modules are already there, and so you don't need to compile them again, but it still needs to be able to find them. And so that's something I might try to add to this at some point in time. It will need a configuration file and stuff like that. But right now, I just want it to do it for my own project. Now, the reason why I want it for my own project is I have a project to replace the C++ standard library, which means it won't have any dependencies on anything whatsoever. And I'm actually going to have to replace a bunch of the internal GCC runtime infrastructure as well, because the GCC internal runtime infrastructure depends upon libc, and I don't want to depend on libc. And so, but in order to do that, I need to firewall off the system include files so that the macros and the symbols that are defined in the system include files don't leak into the library, because I only want to use the system include files to get values for constants that will then be encoded as constexpr things inside the C++ standard library. Yeah, you're kind of right about the average developer not caring about performance or security or strict correctness. Like, one of the things I do when I'm implementing things is I go to the standards document for it, and like I open the standards document, and then I have my implementation, and I make sure that my implementation, in fact, is a valid implementation according to the standards document. It implements everything in the standards document the way it's supposed to be implemented. Unless the standards document says you don't have to do that, then maybe I don't do that. But that is how I do things when I write code. And the reason I do that is because one of the other things that I notice a lot of developers do is they look at somebody else's implementation of a standard, and then they sort of half-assedly copy that implementation of the standard. And so there ends up being this massive standards drift, as nobody goes back to the source document that describes the standard, but instead they all sort of halfway copy each other's implementations, and with varying degrees of fidelity. At least if you always go back to the source document, maybe you make a mistake and you don't do it quite right, but at least everybody then is doing it not quite right in a different way. It's not like some kind of metastasizing, evolving entity that then completely drifts away from the original standard, where you have to start implementing all kinds of bizarre things to remain interoperable with a whole series of implementation mistakes. Everybody's making different implementation mistakes, and therefore they're all incentivized to fix their own implementation mistakes to maintain consistency with each other, if that makes sense. So, yeah. Which is what I'm doing here. I'm not looking at libcody the code. I'm looking at this README file here that describes what libcode is supposed to be doing. Although one thing I did is I cut and pasted this README section into an AI and had the AI write these two functions for me, the split and join command functions. And then I modified the join command slightly. But that's yes. It's kind of an experiment on my part, just to see how well AI is. I'm trying to figure out how well AIs are at writing code, and exactly how much scrutiny the code that they produce needs, which still is actually a heck of a lot of scrutiny. You need to look over the code that the AI wrote for you. If for no other reason, then you should understand it. If you don't go over the code in detail that the AI wrote for you, you won't understand it. And you should be able to go over that code and gain a good understanding of it faster than it would have taken you to write it yourself. But yeah, anyway, I have a lot of opinions. It's one of the reasons why I'm doing these streams. uh, um, I actually believe if you're interested in the BTRFS snapback thing, I actually it's a pip installable. It is a pip proper Python thing, and it does exist on GitHub. BTRFS snapback. I'm using Mercurial for version control because I always do. If I, well, not always, but if I can get away with it, I do. And so that's where it is right there on GitHub. I really should actually have an official Mercurial place to put it too, because I want to consider the Mercurial version, the Mercurial version of the history to be the canonical version of the history. If HGGit, the extension, I don't know. Maybe it's debug. Yes, we'll see what debug extensions does. Yes, one of the extensions I'm using is HGGit, and the HGGit extension sometimes changes how it maps Mercurial and Git versions to each other. And if that ever changes, I want it clear that it's the Mercurial version of the history that's the canonical version, which means I should be pushing the Mercurial version of the history to some central location someplace. Well, BTRFS Snapback is designed to be a tool that you can use just as a tool, like to make backups. It does require BTRFS. So if you don't use BTRFS, it's useless. But if you do use BTRFS, it's not a bad tool, in my opinion, because I wrote it. It's not a bad tool for maintaining incremental backups of BTRFS subvolumes. And one of the things about the way it maintains these incremental backups of BTRFS subvolumes would have enabled the whole backup system that I described to you last time you showed up in one of my streams. Okay. Anyway, what was I doing here? Subordinate GCC, blah, blah, blah. So my replies should now be like this. Like that. And no open brace. Yes, that's what they should look like. So now let's see here. So output bundle should now be a list of strings. And this should now be list of string. And let's see here about places where output bundle is used. Make sure that I always append a list to it. Not doing it here. Okay, there I'm doing it. Not doing it there. All right. This is going to be kind of crazy. Dot join. And this is not going to be whee. Now it's kind of a whole nested thing here. I don't so blah blah blah. We don't need this. And that's how that's going to work. And that's how that's going to work. Because this join command reply should return a bytes. So for every command list that's in our output bundle, we're going to squish everything together with spaces between, which is what join command does, as a set of bytes. And then we're going to take all of those and join those together with semicolon carriage returns. And then we're going to put a carriage or line feed, put a line feed at the very end. Okay, that's what I want. And yeah. So let's try that again. Yes. Okay. Function object is not subscript. Oh, well, yes, of course it's not. There we go again. Not see here. Let's look at command log. Blah, blah, blah. Got command bundle, parsed words. All that looks appropriate. Yes. Oh, we're still getting this. We shouldn't get this. Like the \n at the end shouldn't be there. That should have been carved off. Oh, I see. Yes, 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 yes. One of the things is I have focus follows mouse, and JetBrains does not like focus follows mouse. I don't want that there. Okay. Much better. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. There we go. Yep. That parsing is correct. I should test some of the more exotic parsing things, but I'm not in the mood to do that right now. In fact, this whole thing has been kind of an adventure that's left me now feeling like, well, I should commit this and move on a bit. I was actually hoping to get to, like, I don't know that calling the subsidiary GCCs actually works right now, and I was thinking I would like to get to that, but I've spent so much time shoring up the protocol to, in fact, actually do the parsing correctly, that uh, I don't know that I want to spend another hour on stream getting the getting the subsidiary GCC to making sure that the subsidiary GCC is launched correctly, and also handling some of the extra. There's a couple of extra messages that'll come across once it starts needing to launch subsidiary GCCs. Um, because I actually did some research. I'm going to be keeping a database that maps, like, one, I'm going to have a subdirectory within GCC the module cache for each set of possible command line options for GCC, and I'm going to have something for saying for giving CPP server like the input and the output file, and it will specify -C and -O to GCC because it needs to know the input and output file in an unambiguous way. Uh, and yeah, all kinds of stuff. Um, so I have a lot of work to do to make the subsidiary GCC thing work properly. And it's much more than another, you know, half hour of work. It's probably more like another hour and a half of work, maybe a couple hours of work. So I think I want to end the stream now. Yes, I was just debating with myself whether I wanted to continue the stream or not. Um, so what I will do is, oh, actually, that's another thing AIs do. This is evil. Lines that end with spaces, that should never happen. And so, what I am going to do is I do have some windows here. So I'm going to load up CPP server in one of these windows. And then we're going to do, see, all I have my GCC or my Emacs configured so that spaces at the ends of lines show up in the angry red that they deserve. So, yes, replace that with nothing. There. Much better. And I can see that no more of that. Okay, so we're going to do uh, there. So wrote that bit out and did that. Your JavaScript thing sounds kind of neat. Um, It's been a long time since I've done any real work with graphics. Been since like oddly enough, the early 90s is the last time I did serious work with graphics. And then what I did is I wrote a networked ray tracer that also did motion blur, except it did motion blur via an anti-aliasing technique for time, uh, not by doing strictly doing motion. Like, yeah, a lot of the techniques that are used for motion blur now, that's not what I did. Um, and actually, I think I might have chosen to do it a bit differently if I were going to do it again. Um, yeah, I think I might have chosen to do it a bit differently. And so, uh, but it did do ray tracing, and it did split up the ray tracing task to a large group of 10 or 20 workstations and coordinate work with all of them. That's the last time I did any serious graphics work. uh, anyway, it was nice chatting with you again, and I hope that you have a good night.